Happy Wednesday to the world out there. Happy podcasting day, everyone. Even if you're not listening to this on Wednesday, we welcome you in. Gentlemen, what's going on?
Hello there, sir.
Sirs? Zeb always kicking it off with the accent in the beginning. I love it.
I can't help it.
He needs a new range of accents, though.
What am I supposed to do? That's...
I don't know. I'd like a Jamaican accent next time, and then
no, man,
like a North Korean accent. Or...
That's cultural appropriation, man.
I don't think people get. You can have a whole podcast on cultural appropriation because I believe it exists, but I probably don't cast as wide a net as some.
Dem final guan. Big tings.
Oh man! All right, well, we're the Hawkscast podcast, and we're going to talk about some Seahawks. But gentlemen, exciting game this weekend. 10 a.m. start. It was the preseason Super Bowl champions, and Seahawks come out with a win. So I mean, it wasn't maybe perfect. It was a win, and you know, there's some highs, there's some lows, but it was fun. I mean, I was glued to my TV watching that game like the entire time, and it was crazy.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Were you throwing things at the TV at first?
You know, I wasn't throwing anything at the TV. There was definitely like moments where you're like, man, like this is just who we are right now. We're just up and down, and you know, we're just the magic. It's just there again, and that's kind of the season. And it was interesting. So I started watching the game because it's a 10 a.m. West Coast game, which is a nightmare time for you, Russ, because that's like what, it starts 2 a.m.
Yeah, I like that one actually. I like that better than the 5:30 games
because that one you just stay up for it and then you crash at the end.
I always stay up for all of them, but the problem is, like, I always just stay up all night till morning. But the 2 o'clock games, like, I'm still really, really awake for. I'm like a really, really night person, as you know. So I stay up till, even on a normal day, I stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning. So, like, when things happen at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, I remember them. I know them well. I'm still alert. When I watch 5:30 a.m. games, and then I go to sleep at, 8:30 or 8:45 in the morning, when I wake up after that, I tend not to remember the game as well. Like, I remember the results and stuff like that, but I don't have as clear of a memory because I'm a little bit foggy at the end. I'm sleepy, so I have to rewatch it.
Zeb, this is it's been a while since we've had a 10 a.m. game. What was your routine that morning, that Sunday, fall October day with the Browns?
My routine for a 10 o'clock game is to wake up in a panic just in time to turn the TV on and roll over and watch the game with one eye till about halftime.
Well, I mean, outside of like the last like 2 minutes in the second quarter and the first like 2 minutes in the first quarter, you weren't missing a whole lot. There's definitely a roller coaster of emotion. Quick shout out to Birdfinger, who was chatting with us online, who's chatting with us on Hawkcast Forum, and he was having a really hard time. I believe Birdfinger was so frustrated by this game, he had to step away from the main broadcast, and he had to just watch Red Zone. So, I mean, I feel for him because the game was not pretty, for sure, right?
No, it wasn't. And that I definitely know some people like that, too. If things aren't going well, they kind of have to step away from it. But I don't know.
I admire and actually envy Birdfinger. Like, actually, he and I have come close to a fight earlier this year over something in a game. But I really like the fact that he can get that into it and that emotional. Like, as I get older and older, I find like I'm actually less. I'm still super obviously involved in the Seahawks and emotionally invested. But
right,
I don't get as angry or as excited or whatever about the games. And actually, I get like this. The Pete Carroll era has created this weird calm about me. Something about having like a fourth quarter comeback specialist quarterback as well. Like, I wrote this somewhere else. I can't even remember where I was writing it, whether it was Twitter or our website. But when games happen like this past Cleveland game, where it's like suddenly it's 20-6, I don't think, oh my God, this is really awful. I have to step away. I can't believe they're doing this. I think, wow, I wonder how this comeback is going to play out. Like, that's actually how I'm feeling.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And on top of that, you kind of have to train yourself to not live and die on every single play. Not every bad play either, like a run that goes for no yards or negative yards or incomplete pass. Those are also, they're not for nothing just because you didn't score or get a first down on that play. Every play matters to a certain degree. And just because it didn't work that time doesn't mean it wasn't important to run it then. Then maybe it'll work later or something like that. You gotta kind of see the whole picture and not just when things aren't going exactly how you think they should be.
Yeah. And quick shout out to Birdfinger and Tony for on the Twitch chat who said, hey, it worked. So yeah, turning it off, going to red zone. And Tony saying thoughts and prayers for Birdfinger. But that brings us to kind of a good point. We have some topics that are talking exactly about that idea that, there is something about this team that it's almost like, okay, yeah, we're going to wait for that fourth quarter of Russell Wilson magic where all of a sudden like things are just going to create crazy and it works out. But we've also seen kind of the flip end of that. We're like, oh, you know what? They didn't start quick enough. This game was kind of a weird worst case of horrors because they started off super hot. They first possession, they get a touchdown to match the short field that the Browns got. And, they crazy win. Jason Myers misses a easy point after kick and just sails so far right. I saw the replay. I'm like, did he even go for the goalposts? Like, it was crazy. But then they keep mounting, the Browns do, and all of a sudden it's 26, and it's like, man, what happened? Like, is this going to be the Saints game again, except it's going to be worse because the Browns are putting together drives at the beginning of the game, and we can't counter them? I was worried. So I feel for Birdfinger. I feel for those fans out there. But this year seems to be different, right?
Yeah, it I guess for lack of a better term, it feels like that magic is back, like you said earlier. I don't know that that's the magic being back is something that we can count on or something that we can hang our hat on. Like I guess we can hope it continues, but it feels that way right now for sure.
Yeah. So Seahawks rise to 5-1 with nearly a third of the season through, and the Seahawks welcome back defensive tackle Jarran Reed back into the fold. So welcome back, Mr. Reed. Russell Wilson MVP talk is still turning up, while Seahawks Twitter turns up the drama on how Pete and company are winning these games. After a close win against the preseason Super Bowl champs, the Seahawks now turn and face an old friend in Earl Thomas as he comes back to town with the Baltimore Ravens. This is the Hawkscast podcast brought to you by the Hawkscast Foreign. And gentlemen, we got a lot to talk about, but I do want to talk about kind of this upcoming game, and we talked about this a little bit earlier in the year, and it's topic number 1. So, Zeb, I want to ask you, is Jarran Reed the cure for the Seahawks up and down defense? You looked at that game, you saw a score of 20-6, and the Seahawks defense looked kind of atrocious on those first 2.5 drives. They just couldn't do enough, and then in the second half they limited the Browns to just 8 points. Is Jarran Reed what we need right now?
I think we need Jarran Reed. I don't know that he's the cure for the up and down defense. I mean, I hope I can only imagine that it'll help. Getting some push in the middle. I was listening to Colin Cowherd had Walter Jones on a couple of weeks ago or a week ago or something like that, and Walter was talking about how because there's so little contact in the off season and in the practices, the early part of the year, you don't really know. He was talking about offensive line, but I think it probably is similar on the defensive line. You don't really know until 4, 5, 6 weeks into the season what you really have there, because you guys have finally had a chance to get physical and settle in and get used to playing with each other and that kind of thing.
I'm so glad you said that too. No, because that's what I say every training camp, right? And I always feel dumb. I always feel like maybe if I had more football knowledge, I would know what I'm looking at. But if even Walter Jones is saying that, I feel good.
Yeah, I mean, he's the GOAT, right? So I hope that, we've been talking about since early in the season, and looking at our defensive line and our front seven in particular, talking about it being potentially one of the best, if not the best in the league. It hasn't looked that way so far this season. Getting Jarran Reed back will hopefully maybe be the thing that'll put it up over the top. Hard to believe one person will have that big of an effect, but you never know.
Yeah, Tony chiming in on the chat saying, they got 0 sacks last game. And
the game.
Russ, I want to know, what's Jarran Reed? What's he going to add to this defense, and is that enough?
I'm a little frustrated, and I mean, like I just said, it's actually 2 games in a row we haven't had any sacks. 3 out of the 6 games we haven't had any sacks. We have Ziggy Ansah and Clowney and what? So you bring in Jarran Reed. I'm of 2 minds, and so I'm gonna hedge my bet. There's a possibility he's sort of like the tipping point. Like, he himself isn't what changes it, but right now you've got offensive lines accounting for Ansah and accounting for Clowney. If you put in one more guy who's a legitimate sack artist, maybe there's just now too many things to account for. Like, you just can't move that much around. And maybe that much more pressure, here, there, and the other things put so much stress on lines that maybe it's not even him who gets the sacks, but they start to come. That's, I think, a distinctive possibility. But I'm nervous because maybe Ansah is done, and maybe he doesn't care much, to be honest. I haven't seen a lot of passion. Clowney's never been like the sack artist that people wanted him to be. Like, he doesn't. I think I wrote about this when we first got him. Like, he doesn't win the one-on-ones. He makes his sacks on sort of interesting and athletic plays, odd stunts and things like that, or just like a super high motor that keeps going on an extended play. He's never been the type that he gets off the edge and gets to the quarterback amazingly fast. So I mean, maybe there's not just that much pressure all to begin with, and Jarran Reed's not good. There's also the possibility that Jarran Reed's not as good as we think he is. He exploded last year, right? For 10 sacks, 10 and a half sacks?
Yeah, 10 and a half.
10 and a half sacks last year. But there weren't any signs previous to that's actually who he is. So that, and it's not unheard of for people to have like a 1 year blip in their statistical production, especially with sacks. So I'm a little nervous that he's not even like what we think he is. I don't know, man. I hopefully he's part of the answer. Part of it, I think also maybe like Ansah and Clowney didn't practice with the team the whole offseason, obviously. So that'll also help, hopefully, as the weeks go by. I hope this is true. For example, like I just said Clowney needs like sort of more drawn up, interesting sort of stunt type plays to take advantage of his like physical abilities. The more he practices with the team, the more they can plan those, right? The first couple of weeks you just saw him like basically do a bull rush, and that's never going to be his forte. But once he learns like the movements of the players around him, they can do more interesting things with him. And hopefully like that plus Reed plus everything else starts to gel, because I think Pete Carroll especially is anxious. The defense is his baby. Going back to what we said at the beginning of the Cleveland game, I'm kind of rattling on here a bit, sorry. But, like I've always argued that Pete Carroll doesn't really care about quick starts. Birdfinger gets annoyed when I say that. It's only true on the offense, though. I think when they gave up the 3 scores back to back to back on defense, I think he does care about that. Like, the defense is meant to come out and play. The offense, if it takes a while, that's fine. He doesn't mind. But the defense is meant to play from the beginning. And I think it's really grating on him that the defense isn't performing to the level he thought it would.
I will say this real quick is, the defense in the game that they gave up, of the 4 scores that they gave up, 2 of them the defense was protecting like a 23-yard field. So it's not like they marched every single time. So I do want to kind of point that out.
The first 2. It was the first 2, and then they made adjustments, and it was amazing. Yeah. After that, it was only after Shanks and things like that they gave up points. So they came around for sure.
Yeah, I think both of you guys it is fair to say that Jarran Reed probably isn't the cure for the Seahawks. They're up and down. They're left and right. They're here nor there. Even even though they didn't get sacks in this game and that game, they're winning the turnover battle, which is, I think, a huge difference from last year. Last year, they're getting a ton of sacks, but they weren't getting turnovers. And now we're seeing kind of the flip. We're not getting sacks, but we're getting a ton of turnovers.
Well, we were getting fumbles, though. We were pretty... Like, that's why some analytic people thought that we couldn't reproduce our win-loss record this year compared to last year, because they think that turnovers are a fluke, and last year we had like more turnovers than you should reasonably expect. But it was all fumbles. I mean, we had very few interceptions.
Right. And now what we're seeing there's almost an equal distribution. I mean, it took until Game 6 for the first interception to go to a cornerback. And, congrats to Trey Flowers for getting his first corner. I thought it was actually a really interesting move. I want to just talk about that. But the play where he got the interception, he just kind of gave himself up. Odell Beckham Jr. Just didn't touch him, stood back, waiting for him to get up, tried to knock the ball and say, oh, hey, he's still alive, that ball's free, I get the ball back. And the rest are like, no, he clearly gave himself up, you don't get the ball back. So I thought a smart move by both of the players. I thought the refs, even though they were horrible that game, that was a good call. But to your guys' point, yeah, Jarran Reed probably isn't the cure, but maybe he can be the kind of placebo. He can be that, we're going to bring back our big boy in the middle. He's going to crash the center. He's going to draw that double team, and it's just going to free up one extra body because Ziggy Ansah's here, and Quentin Jefferson's playing well, and Poona Ford's doing well against the run, and Jadeveon Clowney's moving across like 5 different spots across the line, and maybe they're going to send Michael Kendricks. I think there's a lot of things to be desired. And while I'm excited for Jarran Reed to come back, I think it is kind of unreasonable for us to expect all of a sudden, we're going to see, multiple sacks a game just because of the one addition, whether it's coming from different spots, not necessarily just from Jarran Reed. I think that is a lot to be asked. But at the same time, I just never felt that this defense was going to be, top 5, top 10. I thought it's still going to be a somewhat middle of the road defense with a few really, really good all-star type players.
I guess I was more optimistic than you at points. I don't know, it was weird. I was fighting with myself, as I often do. I have this clinical mindset that's going Clowney's not what we think he is. Onside, really, when people were super optimistic about him, they were cherry picking his stats. He's had a couple, or especially one really good season of sacks, and other seasons he's been sort of, Bruce Irvin middle of career kind of thing,
Right.
So I was did we bring in 2 stars, or did we bring in 2-star names that are more decent players? Plus we hedged in the first round to get a kind of a defensive end that we think will fit eventually. I don't know. What I think is interesting, though, is that they're sticking with their base defense quite a bit, and that's still sort of working for them. They're still giving up tons of yards. They're not giving up tons and tons of points.
Are you cool with that? Real quick.
I'm super
Are
cool
you cool, Zeb and Russ, are you guys cool with the fact that Pete Carroll still trusts his base 4-3 defense instead of going to a more DB heavy with a nickel or a dime or bandit style defense, as opposed to kind of what everyone in the NFL is doing versus no, we're the Seahawks, we're going to do our own thing? Are you cool with that still?
Super cool with it. I think that, especially when you talk about modern linebackers and defensive backs, people get overly obsessive with the little. It's like in politics, people get obsessed with the R or the D after the name. People get in, is that a CB or is it a DB or is it SS or is it FS after the name? Whereas more and more and more, this is something I think that is influenced by the Patriots. It's just about the athletes you have out there, right? I mean, you want to have your best guys on the field. And for example, if you're going to play a ton of zone, it doesn't really matter if that guy midfield 10 yards back technically as a safety or as technically a linebacker, because he's not going to have to run 40 yards straight anyway.
Yeah.
You want the best instinctive guy to cover the middle of the field. And when you're covering the difference of, say, 20 yards or 15 yards, the speed difference between, for example, KJ Wright and what's our nickelback's? I just forgot his name. Our nickelback's
Jamal.
name again. Yeah,
Jamal
they're different. Their time difference in running 15 yards, it's not going to show up on a play. And once you add in their football instincts, it's not going to matter even worse, right? Because it's not coverage; it's covering your zone. So you want to put your best guys in the middle of the field there. The cornerbacks, it still matters. And we have our two best cornerbacks out there. You're not going to put out linebackers out there on the far left and far right. But those guys who are covering zones in the middle of the field, put your best guys there. And if it happens to be a linebacker by chance, and it doesn't happen to have a CB next to his name, it has an LB, it doesn't matter. And it's something the NFL, I think, will learn.
Right. Zeb, what about you? Is that something you will ever care about?
I think what Ross is saying makes a lot of sense. As long as you're not expecting Kendricks to have to run the field with somebody like Brandon Cooks or Cooper Kupp or one of those guys, he's just taking care of an area. It should be fine.
All right, cool. All right, well let's trudge ahead. We're going to move on to topic number 2, and topic number 2, kind of a pipe dream, but Ross, what would it mean for any Seahawk to win a yearly award? We're talking about a player, we're talking about coach, we're talking about executive, we're talking about kicker of the year. Like, what would that mean to you?
I'm not a person that really gets hung up on that kind of stuff anymore. Like when I was in junior high, when I was in elementary school and junior high, actually, I was constantly obsessed with whether Steve Largent would win either the most receptions or more likely the most receiving yards in a year, every year, and whether anybody could win any sort of award. But these days, I don't know if I've just become cynical or jaded, or I don't know. I don't really care. I do care a little bit about fair acknowledgement, not of players, because they're products of systems, and it's not products, but how can I say? I'm not going to word this right. I think it matters for coaches and execs, and I think it would matter in the fact that they would finally get some acknowledgement that what Seattle has done over the past 9-10 years is really, really special. Russell Wilson, I guess it would be indicative. I think actually it would really help a lot of high school players out there. If Russell Wilson can finally win an MVP, then it'll change. I mean, it's already influenced how the quarterback position is looked at, right? If Drew Brees and in particular Russell Wilson didn't exist, then Baker Mayfield and the Arizona Cardinals quarterback, Murray, they don't have jobs today. Or if they do, they're career backups. I think even no matter how good you are, the NFL is not fair, right? If you don't have the right lineage, it doesn't matter actually sometimes your real talent, because people don't see it. There's very few opportunities to showcase it. And so you get stuck as a career backup, even though you might be good enough to start. If Russell Wilson had gone to another team, he might still be holding a clipboard, because they just would never have given him the chance, right?
Right.
So I think it would sort of add to the mini revolution that Seattle's kind of had on the football world, and I think that would be an awesome thing. Last sentence. I think just Pete Carroll and John Schneider have really, really brought unique thinking to the game, and I think it's completely undervalued and underappreciated at this point still.
Fair enough. Zeb, what about you? Would it make any impact in your Seahawk fandom if they took hardware that wasn't the Super Bowl trophy? Because that's a given. We all want that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I care a little bit. I like to see guys on the Seahawks get recognized for their talents. Obviously, wins are most important. If nobody wins any awards and we just win all the damn games, that's great. But at the same time, I like the little things. I like having the number one scoring defense, or a guy having the best touchdown to interception ratio. That kind of stuff is fun for me. I enjoy it. Doesn't ruin my day when they don't get it, but it's that extra little kicker when they do that I think is cool. And you get to say, there's a Seahawk that did that. And yeah, I like it. I like it a little bit. It's not important, but I think it helps. I think the players, probably mostly they talk it down, but I think they probably enjoy it just as much, if not more, than I do. And Pete and John, it's a shame and it's a disgrace that they haven't been recognized.
It's a travesty.
But yeah, it's unbelievable, especially back in 2012, 2013. If they probably both deserve to win their respective awards, and they didn't, and the likelihood of them getting it now is much slimmer. So it's unfortunate.
I think this is an interesting question because it comes kind of down to your philosophy of like, what does recognition mean to you as a fan? I think for some, it's kind of like, oh, well, this kind of validates that I'm cheering for the right people, that the players that are on my team, they're recognized and they're worthwhile because they're getting all of these awards. But it's almost a popularity to a point, and then there's also like kind of the punishment that you guys were talking about, where like, they're not going to receive recognition because they didn't win it early enough, so they're not going to like kind of get the accolades. I think the thing that it would mean if like, which we bring this up because Russell Wilson is, by all accounts, for anyone reasonable, is that Russell Wilson is the current front runner for the MVP in the NFL. Based upon his production, based upon his lack of mistakes comparative to everyone else, and the consistency in which he's doing it, he's the clear front runner. Someone else can make a case for anyone else, but at the most point, consensus seems to be Russell Wilson across most of the NFL world. And to Ross's point, if Russell Wilson wins this award, it won't be because of the LOB. It won't be because he's got the best defense. It won't be because he's got the best running back, even though Chris Carson having a great year minus his fumbles. It's going to be because Russell Wilson's just having an excellent year. The people that know his receiver core, it's a handful of people outside of like Seahawk fans, right? So if Russ can win this award, I think it will finally get him out of the shadows of all the other things that he's had that has helped him have a great career to this point, and really acknowledge that he himself is a great quarterback, because there are definitely a lot of people out there that still say, oh, well, he's undersized, so he can't win this award, or he doesn't put up enough yards, so he doesn't deserve it. They're looking at the wrong things in order to evaluate whether or not someone is good or not, as opposed to what does this player bring to a team and how does that relate to their performance against the entire NFL. And that's what I think it would do. It would kind of validate the people that are looking at it in that way, because we have had MVPs in Seattle. We've had Sean Alexander win the MVP, and we've had Cortez win Defensive Player of the Year on a 2-14
team.
So I mean, it's not like we were a lack for this hardware, but there is that popularity contest to it. So I mean, I'm not going to be put out, but I will definitely say I am paying a lot more attention to how other quarterbacks are doing, such as Pat Mahomes, Deshaun Watson. I'm not paying attention to running backs because they're not going to win the award. Anyone that tries to convince me that they will doesn't watch the NFL. Christian McCaffrey is not an MVP because he's a running back, bar none. But I think it's interesting.
Center touches the ball every play.
What's that?
They always say like quarterbacks touch the ball every play, so they're important. Like centers touch the ball every play.
Yeah,
I mean, give the MVP to a center.
Max Unger, man, he had a great year and that Super Bowl run, so I don't know.
It's kind of a shame, though. I mean, like, the game has changed so much that, I mean, like, in the 70s, it wasn't this obviously this unbalanced. And so it's, I mean, the game
even in the 80s and 90s, it wasn't.
But
right.
But I think the reason for that is because the money is geared so much more towards a quarterback. When a quarterback can take up to 20% of your salary cap in a given year, or 15%, across a 53-man roster, that's huge, right?
Yeah, and it's also that like the rules obviously have changed, and also, I mean, even like the rules about practice, like I think the running game more than the passing game, maybe counterintuitively, needs more real, actual practice. You need to be able to have to practice. The linemen need to be able to, like we talked about briefly, touched earlier, like the offensive linemen can't really practice, so it's really, really hard to practice intricate running plays now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't like it. Like it. Get off my lawn.
All right. Well, let's move ahead. You guys, final comments about hardware?
Give me all of it.
All of it.
If you're gonna get a lot of hardware, like, get like a nice gold grill, right? Yeah, I know that.
Actually, real quick, low key, rookie of the year, DK Metcalf.
No, although there's not like a huge amount of rookies. I mean, like almost to the same argument you made last week, Sam. It's going to be Kyler Murray, even if he doesn't have a great season, because he'll have a bunch of numbers. Right. And DK Metcalf is, although the first 2 weeks I started to eat my hat, he's now back on track to get the number, almost exactly the numbers I predicted. I predicted 40 catches, 600 yards, 6 touchdowns, right? Back in the preseason. And I was back on that kind of 2 catch a game, sometimes 3. That's going to get you 40 catches.
I do want to give a quick shout out to DK because he had all 4 of the catches that he had were great. And he ran 2. One of them was like a quick slant inside, and another was like a drag route across the field, and those both plays were huge first down plays. One was like 30 yards, another was like 17, 19 yards. So shout out to
the
DK.
Slant play is interesting. That might that might be like the most significant slant play we've run since Russell Wilson's been a quarterback.
Yeah,
like, we don't run that.
No, for sure. And Birdfinger chiming in said DK needs touchdowns and flashy stuff. I mean, that toe tapper he had, that was pretty solid. But yeah, more of that stuff, the better for him.
I was just glad to see him get some touches this past game that were a little different than what he's had so far this season. I think that's the thing with him is get the ball in his hands. Nobody wants to tackle him. Like you saw him brush off 2-3 guys. He never actually went down. He ended up out of bounds. But like that's the kind of guy he is. Put the ball in his hands, and he can make you pay for it.
Hey, they gave him a running play. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember that, but he had a running play in the game, which is
I think he's the kind of guy that could break and end around. I mean, probably not. It's not going to hit a home run, but he could get to that second level with it and put somebody on their back. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
They're giving him like a variety of routes now as well, and I'm of 2 minds of that as well. Like on one hand, I'm like, wow, cool. If they can actually get him to run other routes, awesome. On the other hand, I'm worried, like, are you kind of putting a square peg into a round hole? Like, if he can't actually do that, don't just do it just for the sake of doing it. Just let him run what he can run. Like, just toss the ball.
I think he can do it. And now with this league on, unfortunately, I think his role could be even bigger, and I think he may have to step up and do even more.
Yeah.
Hello, you're forgetting about a little person named Wilson, but with 2 L's. No, actually, I'm pretty sure, like, parsing Pete Carroll's language this week, I think they're going to trade for a tight end. Oh, my God, don't trade for, like, some superstar one, though.
It's kind of sounding like they're looking at somebody.
What if it's Jimmy Graham?
Oh, God. Oh, we're going to have...
Like, what if it's Jimmy Graham, but he's, like, bargain basement now because with the Packers, he gets, like, 3 targets a week, if that. So it's like he's had, like, 1 target in 2 weeks back-to-back earlier this year. What if it's Jimmy Graham?
If Jimmy Graham comes back, Russell Wilson is going to throw a lot more touchdowns for sure, but it's not going to do a lot to stretch the field.
I'd like to speculate who it is. Like, what if they give up, like, 2 number 1s and get Austin Hooper? Like all of a sudden Austin Hooper is like a game-breaking machine.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. Birdfinger suggesting OJ Howard maybe. I would rather we address other needs on the defense, but that's here nor there.
What would you give up for OJ Howard though? If it was OJ, I'd give out like a 3rd or 4th.
A 3, maybe a 2.
I was gonna go low and go 4, but
a 2 if they give us a 3 back.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd have to look at his contract. I don't know. But
like OJ Howard's still on his rookie contract, and it was funny because when he first came out of college, people were like talking about how he was going to be this like receiving superstar, but he actually was a better blocker in college. I think it was like 1 or 2 games that made his name as a receiver, but he has developed as a receiver, so he might he might be a sort of a Disley type where like he can catch, he can run.
Yeah.
I don't really like the whole.
The fact that
I
we
mean,
even have
if
to
he
have
comes
this conversation is really frustrating because Disley was doing so great.
Yeah, man, Uncle Will sucks.
Yeah, it sucks.
Damn it.
if we get OJ Howard, I'm not calling him Otis. I'm going to find out what his first name is and call him like Otis.
Orenthal.
Orenthal, it's even worse. I'm just going to call him Mr. Howard.
All right. Well, let's move on to topic number 3. So we're going to try a little bit different, something with the Hawkscast Corner. We're going to talk about Seahawks Twitter. So Zeb, I want to know, why do fans want to fire Pete mid-game?
Because fans are stupid idiots.
All right. Well, that's the end of our topic. So thank you, everyone.
All right, moving on.
No rebuttal, sir.
I mean, Seahawks Twitter that I don't spend a lot of time in because it's a cesspool. It's ridiculous the kind of conclusions that people come to based on cherry-picked data and just a belief that I don't know where it came from. Anybody who's calling for the firing of Pete Carroll in the middle of a game, like after everything you know about him, everything you've seen him be able to do, just now week 6, middle of the game, fire him. It's just ridiculous. Like, it's stupid. It's not even worth thinking about. It's not even worth acknowledging. I would like to believe that most of the people saying those kind of things are just trolling because it makes zero logical sense. Have some damn faith. Use the evidence that we have on our side, which is that we might start slow, but chances are we're going to be in this thing at the end of the game. Just settle the hell down and watch the goddamn football game. God damn it. Sorry.
Ross, you started to dabble a little bit more in Twitter, and you've seen the Seahawks Twitter world. You've seen people that you're getting turned off of and blocking maybe, but where do you think that comes from? Like, what is the position a fan is taking when they're ready to say, I am ready to fire this coach?
It's this particular brand of people thinking they found the truth and putting all their faith in it. And it's actually much worse when they think it's, for example, something that's scientific. If you fall for pseudoscience, we've gotten to the point in society where we do value science. I think, well, now I don't know if we do, but it's just like science, the word has some cred automatically. So if you find like a quote unquote scientific theory and you put some thought into it and you think it seems to speak to you, the problem is it becomes part of faith. It's not really science. There's a few ideas out there floating in the football Twitter community that people think are science that are not. But because of that, because it sounds scientific, because it uses quote unquote data, they latch on it as the truth. And if you get a coach that completely ignores the truth, then you think he's the worst person in the world. And you can completely rationalize your completely irrational thought by not acknowledging that your very first premise is wrong. When you advocate, for example, that basically running backs don't matter and passing is the only thing that makes any sense in the modern game, when you think that when you look at coaches only by their play calling decisions or their the last 2 minutes of every half, and that's all that matters instead of the program as a whole, which is all that really matters. It's the salary cap era. Every player out there is a professional. Every player is getting paid. He's an elite player. So the thing that really, really matters is the coaching, and not necessarily just the play calling, but like the preparation, the playbook, all those things.
The routine, everything that goes into it.
Yes, the philosophy,
the
even like the fact that, yes, all those are what really, really matters. That's what a coach does. And people don't acknowledge that. They think that, oh my God, he's running 3 running plays in a row and it didn't work, so he's a bad coach. Or he just, he kicked a field goal instead of going for it, so he's a bad coach. It's completely irrational thought, and people get, like I said, it's easier for people to get even more entrenched in it once they think they have a really, really solid background for it. But it's, again, like they're fooling themselves. It's not real science. You can't. Those quote unquote analytic people on Twitter, not the real ones, the ones on Twitter, because I'm an analytics guy actually. The 90% of those on Twitter, they can't make a single prediction. But if it was science, if it was a real theory, you could make a prediction. If it's a proper hypothesis, all they can do is tell you in hindsight. And so I saw things ridiculous this week, for example, telling me that like Russell Wilson's almost a god because he's done all of this in despite the offensive system he's in, despite Schottenheimer before him Bevel. Nothing, not because with their support or with their growth. It's all in spite of. And it's like, if you really, really think that passing is the end all and that's all you should be doing, then nothing, like none of the real data matters. Like it doesn't match.
I think that's a really good point. I actually want to like interject this real quick.
Yes,
so there's this idea out there, and Ross, you brought this to my attention. It's the idea that Russell Wilson is succeeding outside and not because of Pete Carroll. You look at Russell Wilson's career, he's had success all the way through his life, but he did struggle because he's considered undersized. Pete Carroll, before he came to the Seahawks, saw success before he was the Seahawks coach. So you bring these two forces where they were both successful, and then together they continue to be successful. And for some reason that people still feel like, oh, well, Russell Wilson is succeeding in spite of the offensive coordinator instead of Pete Carroll and whatever. You look at the opposite angle of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Before they came to the Patriots, both of them were not considered huge winners, you know. Bill Belichick was kind of like an afterthought because they just wanted to get rid of Pete Carroll because they didn't think 500 was good enough, so they tried this guy out who studied with what? Bill Parcells, you know, he was on the Browns defensive coordinator, and they gave him a shot, and they had this 6th-round pick that they were going to try out. And they did not have this track record, but together Bill and Tom Brady, like, succeeded. Yet, no one's seen them succeed without each other. Whereas Pete and Russell have succeeded without each other, right? That's a fair comparison. It's not 100% comparison, but it's a fair comparison to make, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I question that Seahawks Twitter that are saying that they're looking at the data, that they say they're looking at the analytics and saying like, well, what are you looking at? Are you just looking at like this super like microscoped view of this data? Or are you looking at like everything?
Dude, if you're looking at numbers and your conclusion is that running doesn't matter and that passing is the only way to win football games, then you're looking at everything except for the game of football, which is the most important thing for you to be looking at when you decide what's important.
And that's exactly correct. They don't acknowledge the fact that everything is so super hyper interconnected. They look at passing efficiency, they break down like yards per play, things like that when you're passing and so on. And yes, that's actually true because the number of like 40-yard passes compared to 40-yard runs is disproportionate. But everything connects to everything in football. The amount of time your team is out there, whether the whether the time stops after the play or not, how long your defense is out there, how long your offense is out there. That literally every single thing interacts with every other part, and none of them. I've not seen any model that any person on Twitter uses that acknowledges any of that ever.
And like
what does it matter? Like, I mean, or the fact that, for example, like you can, we touched on this earlier, and I didn't say it to the point, but for example, you'll see the Seahawks run out of formation in the first quarter, and they'll run a running play out of it, and they'll do it 3 plays later or the next series again, and both times they get some like 1 yard or -2 yards or whatever, and you're like, oh, it looks like a failed play. Now it's 3rd and 12. But then in the fourth quarter, they come out in the same formation, but they run a very different play out of it. But the defense is already overconfident. They've seen this formation. They've seen that exact motion. They know what this play is now. And so they would react to it the same way. Not even if it's play action. Just a normal play.
Right.
But then in the third or fourth quarter, all of a sudden now from the same play, it's a 40-yard bomb to Metcalf. And same formation, same motion, same the same body language from Russell Wilson before the snap. So they're convinced, but that doesn't show up in any of that.
And I think the biggest counter to that is we see the defending NFC championship LA Rams They're on a 3-game losing streak. They cannot run the ball for the life of them. And all of a sudden, their play action, their passing, everything about that team just looks suspect, right?
I don't know. When you look at when teams throw the ball the most, I mean, here's the thing. Here's what frustrates me the most. If you throw the ball 50 times in a game, you almost always lose.
Right.
And there's no excuse for it. I mean, if that's the most efficient, whatever the reason is, if that's the most efficient way to run an offense, that shouldn't happen. But what happens is you end up with a lot of yards and very few points sometimes, or even a lot of points, but the other team's able to decide, for example, if you're able to run the ball, for example, you're kind of mostly able to a degree decide who's going to have the last even.
Yeah.
Right?
I think a good example of that running is, and Tony puts a comment on the Twitch chat and said, Ross, tell them about the stat I sent you about Carson from PFF. So I want to talk to that. But before that, the thing about running the ball that's really difficult is when teams know you're going to run the ball and you can still succeed, that gives you such a huge edge. When the Browns went for it on 4th and goal a second time when their coach, who I think is kind of a moron, challenged the play, they ran the exact same play. And what did the Seahawks defense do? They said, oh, well, they're going to run the same play, so let's just do a better job. And they stopped him in the backfield, and it ended up being like a negative gain. And then on the flip side, the Seahawks get the ball. They need to get one more first down. And what do? They run, I think, 5 running plays and 1 passing play, and they convert. And they get to take a knee, and they get to win the game because they ran the ball. Even though the team knew what was coming, even though the Browns knew what was coming, they couldn't stop it.
I think I'm going to save Tony's info for question number 4.
Okay,
but
cool.
We're gonna talk on it.
Final thoughts about Seahawks Twitter?
Stay away.
Stay
far away.
I will say, in defense of Seahawks Twitter, I do love the memes from Cable Thanos, so keep that up.
I think there's a positive to it. I mean, like, it's part of where the community is these days. It's just a product of where the internet society. And there's some cool people and there's some interesting people out there, but just that it's the internet. So everybody can present themselves as an expert.
Right.
What I like about our podcast, for example, is that we call it, it's a fan's perspective. Nobody here is going to pretend to know more. Nobody here is going to pretend to know more than Pika. We might agree with them, we might disagree with them, but I'm not going to sit there and go, you know what? Not only did you screw that up, I just know more about football than you. And you know what? That's not actually an unusual thought expressed on Twitter. That's not. It's weird.
Well, right. Ross, we're going to go to topic number 4, and I want your expert, professional, analytical opinion. Please post it on Twitter. Yeah. What's more worrisome, the Ravens' #1 rushing attack or the return of Earl Thomas?
Can I keep it real?
Keep it real.
Keep it real. Neither.
God, that's a take. Tell me more.
Like the return of Earl, first game of the season, Earl had a pretty cool looking interception. It might have been game 2. I think it was game 1. It was sort of like a Tedrick Thompson type, like get your hands under the ball. It's the one thing T2 does well, right? Gets his hand under the ball. And people are like, oh my God, we got rid of him, but this is awesome. But since then, low key, the sort of slow grinding acknowledgement has been that Earl's not 2014, 2015, 2016 Earl anymore. He's still good, but he's not a free safety you might want to give up, say, $14.5 million for anymore. So I don't fear him. And plus, it'll be an interesting chess match, I guess. Does he know Russell's tendencies better so he can take advantage, or does his tendencies better so he can take advantage? That'll be an interesting chess match. The running game, they've got a good running game, but a lot of that's like the quarterback running around, and that's not those yards still count. But I think we've probably got the league's best counter for that, and his name is Bobby Wagner. They've got some good blocking up front, but we've got Chris Carson, and as Tony has showed us, Chris Carson has like 100 yards after contact every one of the last 3 games. For the whole rest of the league, that's happened a total of 3 times the whole season. So we don't have quite the blocking, but we can make up for it with Chris Carson, who's like a mini Marshawn Lynch now. And their rushing attack, it's not yards by quarterback rushing still count, but they're a little bit they can't be counted the same as as a running back, because it didn't happen in the same way, if that makes sense. It wasn't them beating the other team off the line.
They're not designed runs, right?
Right. And even if they are, again, they're sort of cheaper sort of runs. Like when Russell Wilson pulls it and takes off around the edge on a read option, that 16-yard run is not the same mental effect and as if we had given it to Pro Size and he takes off.
Oh, don't mention his name.
Or Chris Carson up the middle, even, for 15. It's not the same effect. So you put a spot. I think they're kind of tailor made for us. Our defense is made to shut this kind of offense down, and their strong points, like they want to throw the ball deep, but like our cover 3 is meant for that, and they want to like run the ball strong. But we've got shut down the defense first mentality, shut down the run game first mentality, with some 3 really good linebackers with depth there. And they have a quarterback who wants to run the ball quite a bit. But again, three really good linebackers. Maybe one spy, maybe not. Maybe just play your zone, because when the zone your back's not turned, you've got 3 really fast, really good. I mean, if there's a game you want to stay in your base defense, and crap, right? You're gonna run against Kendricks and KJ Wright and Bobby Wagner in the week we get Reed back. I'm not worried about anything they do. And there it is. I put it out there. Huh.
Nice. Zed, what about you?
I like your attitude.
Have you watched a lot of the Ravens play this year?
No, not that much. Mostly just highlights for them. They don't get too much TV time up here in the Pacific Northwest.
This would be the last AFC North team we get to play this year, which I'm kind of glad about.
We're doing pretty good against them, all things considered. Earl Thomas is the kind of guy who is so emotional that I believe he can actually channel that emotion and make himself a better player with it. But I think it also can make him sloppy. We saw it years ago when we tested him out as a punt returner. Oh, and he's just too fired up. You know what I mean? He's just too fired up to do the job well. But I also believe that he is going to want very much to make the Seahawks miss him. So I wouldn't say that I'm worried necessarily, but I could totally see Earl getting really fired up and making some big plays. You know how bad he wants to pick off Russ, that kind of thing. It's possible. I don't know.
I totally agree. He really wants to pick off Russ. Do you think that we can use that? Do you think like they can bait him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. I think you guys are kind of both right. I mean, I'm looking at box scores. I'm not looking at actual games, but the teams that the Ravens have beat, the Cardinals, the Dolphins, the Bengals, the Steelers, they lost to the Browns big time. They lost to the Chiefs. So there's quite a few common opponents, and obviously division games are always tougher than, non-division games. But I'm not super worried about this Ravens team yet, just because I don't think there's a great field consistency of what they actually are. Yeah, they have this great running attack, but it doesn't focalize through Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram, I think he's a fine running back, but he's not impossible to take down. I think we've got a great defensive scheme that could really limit their running game. He's not super elusive. He's not fast. He's just kind of he's a power back, right?
Yeah. He's good. He's not game breaker. He's not a...
Right. I mean,
game changer.
There's no one on the defense that is going to get outrun by Mark Ingram as long as they're not running the worst angle possible. So I'm not worried about that. But with Earl, we've never had to face Earl Thomas, so we've never been on this side of the ball. And Earl Thomas has talked about saying, he has kind of he's said really respectfully, talked about great things about Russ and say, hey, those 8 years playing against Russell Wilson, it's going to pay off, and I'm going to see how I do. I am going to be really interested to see if Russ and Pete and Schottenheimer are going to devise a plan and say, like, hey, we've never shied away from a player. We've never shied away from attacking a defense or saying, like, oh, this guy scares us so much, we're just not going to go anywhere near that side of the field. They've never pulled an Aaron Rodgers and just not thrown to a third of the field, right? So I'm really interested to see, what are they going to try and do? Are they going to try and outsmart him, or are they just going to say, like, you know what? We got Tyler Lockett. We got DK Metcalf. We got Jarran Brown, who just catches touchdowns and nothing else, apparently. We've got David Moore, who is coming back and is looking pretty solid. We got Chris Carson. Are they going to try and test Earl? I'm really excited to see what that will look like. But I think that for the most part, I'd have to lean towards the Seahawks, like, coming out ahead in that matchup. But I think it'll be fun to see. I'm not entirely scared of that team yet, and maybe it's because maybe I don't know any better, but I think it's going to be really, really fun.
I hope you're right.
Fun for the Seahawks, not fun for the Ravens. End point. Any comments about the Ravens on this upcoming game?
I think we should be able to take them.
Do you think the Ravens have, like, the kind of, on a deeper level, the best named team?
They're my my AFC favorite for sure.
I like like the 3 degrees you have to kind of step through to find out why they, Edgar Allan Poe, Baltimore, famous poem, the Ravens. I like that. That's cool, man.
I think, yeah. I mean, the Ravens are cool, bird.
I dig it when people get, like, a literal, because America's so anti-academic and so anti, like, high culture or thinking anything. So I kind of dig it when we're the Cleveland Browns because the first owner's last name was Brown.
Yeah, I mean...
Okay. And we've got a brown helmet, you see here, because we're the Browns. Okay.
Yeah.
That's my voice for everybody from Cleveland.
I like the Ravens. I like the Ravens for a long time. I also love the black and purple combo. It's pretty awesome. So
you see, we're the Dallas Cowboys. You see, get it? Texas.
Yeah.
Get it? Yeah.
Cows are boys.
But like Baltimore Ravens. That's so cool, man.
Real quick, Birdfinger wants to know: did the Hawks need to have a
thank you.
QB spot on Lamar Jackson?
Yes.
Probably.
Yes and no. If on plays where they're running primarily man coverage, yes, you have to have Bobby sticking, but they'll probably rotate off and maybe try to mix it up with KJ. But if they're running zone, short zones especially, then no, because then you've got 3 linebackers in short zone that can all, like, who have their eyes forward, all seeing what the quarterback's doing. So in that case, no. But if you're running man to man, which they might do a little bit more than usual because of the Ravens, who they've got a wide receiver and their tight end, they have a legit tight end, right? Andrews. So I think they'll use a spy sometimes when they rotate to man coverage, but most of the time I don't think they'll have a spy because they won't need one because Bobby and Kendricks and Wright will.
Yeah, I mean, look, Lamar's probably gonna frustrate the crap out of us as fans during this game, but just hold on, let things happen. Don't panic, don't freak out. We're gonna win the damn game.
Which is your favorite Lamar? I think I like the guy from Reading Rainbow. But...
LeVar
Burton.
Oh, is it LeVar? Oh, sorry.
Jordy.
Lamar Hunt.
Yeah, that's a good one. Wait, the Reading Rainbow guy.
Kunta Kinte. That's LeVar Burton.
LeVar Burton.
Holy crap, that is too. I totally forgot about that.
Jordy LaForge.
That's like forgetting that Will Wheaton was the guy in Stand By Me.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's run along. We got some predictions for everyone. So, Zep, I'm going to hit you off with all the predictions first.
Yes.
What's your final score? Seahawks and Ravens.
Let's get a scoregami going. Let's say 31-25.
Okay.
Wait, what did he say?
31-25.
Wait, we should acknowledge, Sammy, that you were off by a total of 1 point last.
Ooh.
That's pretty solid. I'll take it.
It was.
Shout out to Tony, because Tony actually reached out to me and told me about that. So thank you, Tony.
Yeah. Let's take a bow, man. I'm going 24-20 this week. Seahawks.
The weather is going to be apparently sloppy and wet, so I'm going to say it's a low-scoring affair. I'm going to go 17-10 Seahawks.
Okay.
Zeb, does Russell Wilson's MVP streak continue?
It absolutely has to. Yes.
Okay.
Like, can we reword it and say, does a streak of 100, like QB rating over 100?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the streak.
Sorry, executive decision.
I think that it's going to be a low key 100 quarterback rating, and the only reason for that is because I don't think it's going to be bad weather. It's going to be kind of a sloppy game, but Russell's not going to turn the ball over. So he's going to continue the streak, but it's not going to be a sexy game. But he's not going to do anything to hurt the Seahawks. Birdfinger's got a 26-24 score for the Seahawks, and he does have Russ with that. Russ MVP. Zeb,
I need a 26.
Bunch of field goals.
I guess. That's like 4 field goals and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yep.
Zeb, who strikes first, Russ or Earl, if at all?
Russ is going to strike first and strike hard. No mercy, sir.
Sweet. You know what? I don't know, but I think I have this idea that I think like Russ is kind of gonna get Earl on one, but I also feel like Earl's gonna get Russ on one. It's gonna come out at the end of the game with like this mutual respect, yo, bro, kind of thing. So
yeah.
So who's first?
Yeah. Maybe Earl first.
Okay. I'm gonna say Russ is gonna get it first, because what's gonna happen is the Seahawks game plan, it's not to avoid Earl Thomas. It's just that whatever he does, it's going to be cleanup, and he's not going to have a huge impact. Tony with a 27-17 forecast Hawks win. Who's going to have more rushing yards, Zeb? Russ or Lamar Jackson?
Lamar Jackson. Ooh, I am for real.
I think the Ravens are going to be a little hesitant.
Yeah,
and I think it's going to be Russ on a surprise.
Okay.
It also could be the Lamar like breaks his leg.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
I can't explain my feelings. I can't explain them. It's just
I'm going to say Lamar is going to get the more yards on the ground, because the receiver is going to do a good job containing. Birdfinger's got Lamar as well. Zeb, who's going to get our first sack? Is it going to come from the D line, the linebackers, or the DBs?
Can we say first, are we going to get a sack? And if we
No. We're getting a sack.
That's taken for granted.
It's defined. They're not going to go 3 games without a sack.
It is known.
It is known. It's decided.
A D lineman. Somebody off the edge.
So you say like Clowney or Ansah?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe Green.
Do you remember how excited we were that Quinton Jefferson had 2 sacks his first?
Yep.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. It's going to be Kendricks. He'll have his 3rd sack of the season.
That's fair.
I have him at 8 for the season, so he's a little bit behind.
Okay. I think it's going to be the DL. Birdfinger's calling Quentin Jefferson. I'm going to say Puna Ford. I'm going to do Puna Ford. They're going to do like a play action. Puna's going to crash the line, and he's just going to swallow up Jackson. So Puna Ford getting his first sack.
So Puna Ford will be on the field.
Yeah.
Who's our other defensive tackle?
They rotated Al Woods, and they got...
Right, so is Al Woods taking... Al Woods right now, I guess, is Reed's spot.
Yes.
But are we going to... Oh, my God. Are we going to give up Al Woods on running downs against the Ravens on his first game back?
We'll see. I mean, you might be Puna and Jarran Reed together.
Yeah, they might kind of work Reed in slowly instead of just putting him out there right away.
Against the Ravens, I kind of hesitate to take Woods out.
We'll see.
I could see that.
Zeb, over under 100 rushing yards for Chris Carson.
Over.
No hesitation.
No.
I'm taking the under then. Yeah, because Procise gets.
Oh, don't even know. No, we're shutting down your
Why
prediction.
the hate? Like I know he's hurt all the time, but why the hate? Like you're hating not even on not on his like health anymore. You're like hating.
Did
on
you
his
forget
overall
he fumbled the
ability.
ball?
How many? Oh my god! But you like Chris Carson? Hello? Did you forget he fumbled the ball 8 times?
Chris Carson fumbled the ball 4 times, but the difference is like the
Come
amount
on,
of
dude.
opportunities.
Like, what a hypocrite!
No.
You're acting-
We're
you're
talking about
Technically,
percentage of
he only
fumbles,
fumbled 3 times. According to the
percentage of
statistics.
fumbles
You're-
compared
you're
to
treating-
carries and touches.
Yeah.
CJ Procise has like 10
Procise-
touches, and he's already got 1 fumble. That's like a 10% opportunity that he's turned into a turnover.
Dude, you're treating Procise like you used to treat white tight. In case you don't know, Sammy used to have a thing against white tight end.
I don't have a thing against white tight ends. I had a thing against John Carlson.
Yeah.
He was a honky.
Yeah, John Carlson's not even. John Carlson did not make it after he left the Seahawks. He went to the Vikings for like a half year.
Did Disley cure you?
I don't have a thing against white tight ends. I love Zach Miller.
You loved Luke Wilson, too.
You make exceptions for all Zach. Zach's a cool name. So.
Nah. Over unders
What was he-
4.5 catches for DK Metcalf.
Under.
Russ is
What's
thinking
his
about
max in a game? His max in a game is 4, right?
it. He's topped out at 4 catches.
Could this be the game he breaks out? Yeah, it is. This is gonna be the game he gave. I don't know. I'm gonna go over just because I'm a contrarian.
All right. I'm gonna go under. I think DK is having a great year so far, but the weather not gonna be great, so they're probably not gonna put the ball up. Birdfinger says under. Tony wants to know how many targets he's gonna get. I'm gonna say he's probably gonna get like 5 targets. He'll get like 4 catches.
He's gonna have. I think he'll have. Oh god, I said over. I think he'll have 9 targets,
Ooh.
5 catches.
He's getting a lot of targets. I mean,
He's
that's
had 7 in the game. I think he's had 7 back. That was a game he only had 3. Because can we take out the fade from the Seahawks player? They keep throwing this fades in the end zone to DK Metcalf and other people. Like it leads to like low productivity.
hasn't
Yeah,
been
I'd
working
really
very
love for
well.
them to run like an inside move to DK, but maybe that's just they're not ready yet.
Well, they ran that slant. We'll see.
Yeah, but not in the red zone, which I get. It's a tighter field.
Well, it's also like it immediately goes into flashbacks. Oh my god, the throwing from the one on the slant.
Yeah, but there's not a pick play involved. They're just giving him opportunities.
DK Metcalf is sort of a walking self pick, right?
Birdfinger's
He's
saying
just
that
blocked
DK is
out
going to
everyone.
get 6 targets and 3 catches, and they're all long touchdowns. So that'll be
okay.
awesome.
That's tight. I'll take that.
Zeb, over under 1.5 wide receiver touchdown dances.
Are we talking group efforts or just any dancing?
Group
We're gonna-
efforts from the wide receiver core.
Probably just one of them then. Under.
Gonna go
Can we
contrarian?
get in touch with them because they did the
They did the one, but they
did in sync bye of all goddamn things last week, right?
Yeah,
What
it was
I
great.
want them to do is I want them to do new editions if it isn't love. You've seen the video, right?
I actually
Go Google it if you go.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna have to put it on. You're gonna have to put it on the forum.
And I think Beyonce did like a copy in one of her videos. Beyonce, somebody did.
All right, you're gonna have to put that
like,
on the
he's
forum
like-
because I actually don't know what that is. So I am
Oh,
curious.
really? Oh
Did
my
you
god.
s-
Okay, I will.
Did you see that Tyler's dance was the Joker dance?
Is that what it was?
Yeah,
Oh, that's.
But you
what
know
that
what's
was for.
unfortunate is he didn't get that credit for the touchdown.
I know, but he
But-
still got to do the dance.
I am happy that Carson got to vulture that touchdown because he deserved a touchdown.
He did.
If you do wait, so for prediction purposes, if you do your touchdown dance, but the touchdown doesn't count, does it still count as a touchdown dance?
Yep.
Yes, because they
Okay.
gave the time for you to dance. The dance
Okay,
cannot
so-
be taken away, even though the touchdown can
Yeah,
be.
you can't go back in time and take away a dance somebody did.
Right.
Okay, so
You
I'm
could
going with
make
the
the
over
argument that it wasn't a touchdown dance, but at the time when they were dancing, they thought it was. So you can't take that away from them.
okay, if you
Dance
say-
like nobody's watching.
Exactly.
and if your friends don't dance, well, friends of mine.
Yeah.
That's
Gentlemen,
actually-
that is our podcast.
Check the
shout-outs.
website. I will be posting a new edition dance there. And somebody who knows the Seahawk wide receivers, get that to them, please.
Nice, nice.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm on it right.
Zeb, any shout-outs today?
Whatever the opposite of a shout out is to Seahawks Twitter.
I think that's putting someone on blast.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, on blast. That's what you call that. I'm putting analytics on Seahawks Twitter on blast.
Nice, nice. I want to shout out to Justin Britt because on DK Metcalf's 30-yard reception where he caught it and ran like 25 yards after the catch, Justin Britt was the lone Seahawk trailing. He like ran from the line of scrimmage all the way behind DK. I don't know what he was doing, but he was running with DK like all the way down the field. So go watch the replay. Shout out to Justin Britt. Check us out at hawkscast.com. We're on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast and Seahawks Forum. This is a Hawkscast podcast. I am Sam. There's Zeb and Ross, and we appreciate you checking out. Shout out to Birdfinger and Tony, and go Hawks.
Go Hawks!